Have you ever heard of Rachel Wilson? Her disappearance in 2002 left her family and investigators puzzled for over a decade. But in 2014, a breakthrough in the case finally occurred when a suspect was named. The suspect was accused of Rachel's murder, but despite strong evidence, he maintained his innocence. In this video, we will take a closer look at the most disturbing case of Rachel Wilson and how it was finally solved after years of unanswered questions. We will explore the investigation, the evidence presented, and the suspect's confession. Stick around until the end to find out what really happened to Rachel Wilson. Rachel Wilson's disappearance in 2002 left her family in a state of confusion and despair. After her family involved the police, a search for Rachel was launched, but there was no tangible evidence to go on. The only lead the police had was CCTV footage of Rachel walking down Southfield Road, Middleborough around 7:02 a.m. on May 31, 2002. The search for Rachel continued for 16 months, during which the police and Rachel's mother made several appeals to the public for information. Rachel's brother, Benji Hopkins, died from an antidepressant overdose a few years after Rachel's disappearance. Her family believed that his death was connected to Rachel's disappearance, as they were very close. 10 years after Rachel's disappearance, a group of men working on a farm on the outskirts of Middleborough unearthed human bones. The bones were found buried in a shallow grave, and the police were immediately contacted. After 2 weeks, the analysis of the bones confirmed that they were Rachel's. Her family was broken by the news, and Rachel's mother was devastated, but relieved that her daughter had finally been found. Preparations for Rachel's funeral were set into motion, and the bereaved family received huge support from the community. Rachel was finally buried alongside her brother Benji a few months after her remains were found. However, there were still many unanswered questions about Rachel's death. The examination of her remains did not reveal anything that could have led to her death, and the investigators could not establish a cause of death because the remains were just skeletal. Temporary Detective Superintendent Paula Jewell, who investigated Rachel's death, explained that while it was a significant development to find someone who had been missing for 10 years, it did not provide them with the lines of inquiry they had expected. The case remains unsolved, and the family continues to grieve their loss while hoping for answers. Rachel Wilson's disappearance in 2002 left her family and investigators puzzled for more than a decade. Her father, Bernard Wilson, passed away before knowing what had happened to his daughter, compounding the family's tragedy. But in 2014, a breakthrough in the case finally occurred when a suspect was named: Keith Hall. Keith, who was 54 years old at the time, was arrested and interrogated about Rachel's death. A search of his property revealed damning evidence, including a lock of Rachel's hair and a note she had written to Keith just hours before her disappearance. In the note, Rachel apologized for not earning enough money. This note and lock of her hair would later serve as crucial evidence against Keith. Keith was released on bail due to insufficient evidence linking him to the crime, but he remained a prime suspect. Over the next few years, investigators made little progress, but in 2018, a special grant was given to the investigation unit to refocus their efforts. Investigators then turned their attention to the sex workers who had been around at the time of Rachel's disappearance. They visited approximately 500 of them, which was time-consuming work. Eventually, they began to uncover a toxic relationship between Keith and Rachel. Witnesses reported how Keith had led her into prostitution and physically abused her when she didn't bring in enough money. Some witnesses even recalled seeing Rachel covered in bruises. One witness came forward and told the police that Keith had confessed to killing Rachel after her remains were discovered. Finally, investigators had strong evidence against Keith, and they were able to link a purple Vauxhall combo van to Rachel's murder. They believed that Keith had beaten Rachel to death after she didn't earn enough money, and then covered up his tracks by hiding her body on a farm where it was discovered 10 years later. After more than a decade of mystery, the case of Rachel Wilson's disappearance was finally solved. Keith Hall was charged with her murder, and the evidence presented by investigators was overwhelming. The tragedy of Rachel's death will never be fully erased, but her family and loved ones finally have the closure they desperately sought for so long. Keith was accused of the murder of Rachel Wilson in December 2019. He was also charged with living off immoral earnings and perverting the course of justice. Although evidence pointed to him as the killer, Keith maintained his innocence and pleaded not guilty. The trial date was postponed several times due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but finally on May 11, 2021, the trial was scheduled to begin. However, on that day, Keith admitted that he was responsible for Rachel's death. Although he denied the murder charge, Keith pled guilty to manslaughter, a lesser charge, as well as the other 2 charges against him. The Crown Prosecution Service, responsible for prosecuting criminal cases, explained that the case was particularly challenging, and it was impossible to identify the cause of death or the motive behind it. Since a murder charge would require proving intent, a plea to manslaughter was acceptable, given Keith's admission of guilt and other evidential factors. It is unclear what happened exactly because Keith never gave an account of how or why he killed Rachel. Nevertheless, the authorities believe that he was responsible for her death, and the evidence pointed to him as the killer. Keith's attempts to influence a key witness to lie to the police also resulted in a charge of perverting the course of justice. Despite maintaining his innocence for some time, Keith ultimately confessed to being responsible for Rachel's death. This admission of guilt allowed the case to be reviewed, and a decision was taken that a plea to manslaughter was acceptable, given the challenges of proving intent in a murder charge. The spokesperson for the investigation announced that Keith Hall, who had pleaded guilty to manslaughter, was convicted of killing Rachel and disposing of her body. The decision to charge him was made after careful consultation with the police and Rachel's family. On November 1st, 2021, Keith was sentenced to 18.5 years in jail for his crimes, which included living off the proceeds of prostitution and perverting the course of justice. Although Rachel's family was relieved to finally get justice after her 19 years of waiting, they could not find any happiness in the outcome of the case. Despite Keith being in jail, the road ahead remains difficult for Rachel's family, as their nightmare is ongoing. The family would never get complete closure, although this would bring them some kind of closure. Rachel's sister, Nicola, remembered her as a funny, cheeky girl and hoped that others would remember her that way too. The case highlights the importance of speaking out against abuse and seeking help, as it is uncertain whether Rachel would still be alive today if she had confided in her family about what she was going through with Keith Hall. It is essential to seek support from those around you when you are in need, and help is always available. It is a tragedy that Rachel's life was cut short in such terrible circumstances. However, it is comforting to know that justice has been served in some way, and Keith Hall is now held accountable for his actions. As for the future, the family of Rachel can only hope that they can eventually find peace in their hearts and minds, and that Rachel's memory will live on as the bright and funny girl they knew and loved. The case of Rachel Wilson's disappearance and murder is a tragic reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows of society. For years, her family and investigators searched for answers, and finally, after more than a decade, justice was served. Keith Hall's guilty plea brought a sense of closure to Rachel's loved ones, and the work of law enforcement serves as a reminder that no case is ever truly closed until justice is served. As we reflect on this disturbing case, we are reminded of the importance of speaking out against abuse and exploitation. Rachel's story highlights the need for greater protection and support for vulnerable individuals, particularly those who are at risk of being exploited by others. We hope that the resolution of this case can bring comfort to Rachel's family and serve as a reminder to all of us to remain vigilant against the dangers that exist in our world. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.